We're talking rookie running backs on today's Locked On 49ers. Isaac Guerendo, fourth rounder out of Louisville, and Cody Schrader, the undrafted running back. And as we know with San Francisco 49ers runners, do not disrespect the late round, the undrafted running backs. Running back depth chart, camp battles, coming up on today's Locked On 49ers.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker at BD Peacock at Crocky209. Thanks everybody for making us your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We appreciate all of our everydayers out there, and we love it when you subscribe. Make sure you hit that subscribe button on YouTube or wherever you are listening to this podcast. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. All right, Croc, let's talk running backs. We're down to the final two draft picks that we have done post-draft profiles on, looking at the tape, looking at how they fit with the San Francisco 49ers, what they might do as rookies and beyond. The last one up will be seventh-round linebacker Tatum Bethune out of Florida State. Now that we're getting into the running backs and Isaac Guerendo, and we're also going to talk about our first undrafted free agent. Not talk about him first, but go a little bit deeper dive on the tape on an undrafted free agent signing for the 49ers with another running back in Cody Schrader. And Croc, immediately when you put on the tape with these two guys, you can't have two prospects that are any different than Isaac Guerendo and Cody Schrader. And when you look at their workout numbers, it's pretty clear why one was drafted and one was not. But when you put on the tape, it's a little bit closer, isn't it, Croc?
I actually don't think it's close, but I think in the opposite way that a lot of people were seeing this. Kyle Shanahan joked, during the draft about, hey, we're going to draft a running back third round, and the guy who drafted in the sixth round is going to be a guy who plays more, and he ends up being better. But I think this is a classic example of this. And I understand this, right? If you're drafting in the fourth round, you have an opportunity to, get a guy who has like these tremendous measurables. Of course, you maybe want to add maybe that dynamic to this team. But when you watch, and I butcher his name all the time, but the Louisville running back, Guerendo?
Guerendo, yep.
There we go. Okay. Yeah. Guerendo. When you watch Guerendo, correct me if I'm wrong, and we'll talk about him first. How much speed really shows up on film?
It's what I think it's classic build-up speed, right? Is what we're talking about. Because there are times where he's running and he's clearly running fast. But does he play fast would be my biggest question watching Isaac Guerendo. Does he play as fast as his 40 time, right? And there are times where you can see like, hey, this guy's gonna run a 4.33. Like, okay, I guess I see it here and I see it here. But you don't see it like, oh, okay, here's this move and burst and boom. So it's a little bit different to me than somebody else who is a 4.3 running back. Like who's a 4.3 running back that's been on the 49ers, right? Raheem Mostert. Elijah Mitchell ran 4.3. And I remember our post-draft breakdown of Elijah Mitchell when he was drafted. And it was like, man, he doesn't look like he runs quite 4.3. But when he does put his foot in the ground and you see it and there's space and he hits it, you can see some top speed. And so there's a little bit of that there with Isaac Guerendo, but I think it takes him even longer to hit that top gear than it did for Elijah Mitchell when we were breaking him down. And if you asked me and you said, hey, okay, watch this prospect, what does he run? What's his 40 time going to be? I'd be like, oh man, I bet he'd break 4.5. He can get up to top speed, right? But I probably wouldn't say 4.33 necessarily. Now that doesn't mean he's a bad prospect necessarily. He just is. He's more of a build-up runner than a quick twitch, like you see it immediately twitched up, sort of running back. That's what I saw when I looked at him from just a pure explosion perspective.
I think if you went into it and didn't know any of his measurables, I think it's very clear why he was not the starting running back, right? Like some of the things that you want to see out of your starting running back, have a little bit more twitch, a little bit more suddenness, ability to make guys miss, have that, kind of breakaway speed, but also have that speed from the line of scrimmage to, to about 10 yards down the field. Who has that? It's a starting running back, not so much Guerendo. So there were times where I was able to kind of see his, speed if he kind of bent the corner a little bit, but it really just kind of took forever for him to kind of get to that. So let's look at just some of the notes I wrote down. Wants to bounce his runs. He had opportunities on, there was one that was like 2nd and 1. And he doesn't just hit the hole, then he kind of bounces it. And instead of just putting his foot in the ground and getting north right now and picking up the first down, he tried to bounce it again, gets tackled for a loss, does not pick up the first down on the short yardage situation. And then I saw him on the goal line, get stuffed a couple times. That's not to say I didn't see him score a touchdown, but what was a little bit more consistent, I felt like he doesn't run behind his pads. Runs a little high. All right. So what does that mean when a guy doesn't run behind his pads? You look at Adrian Peterson. He's a guy that ran high until it was time to run behind his pads. Right now, you see other guys. I think Christian McCaffrey, does a terrific job running behind his pads. One of the best guys ever I've seen run behind their pads. Wasn't a speedster, had 2 torn ACLs in college. But Frank Gore, he ran behind his pads. How often did you see guys just get a clean shot on him or stand Frank Gore up in the hole, knock him backwards? You didn't see it. It's always going forward. And with Guerendo, you see a lot of times where he's trying to make guys miss and he's a little upright, and they just wrap him up, bring him to the ground. And his running style definitely reminds me of Raheem Mostert, but without having Raheem Mostert's acceleration. And that's probably why Raheem Mostert, you guys got to remember, I think we saw what he became with the 49ers. He was cut 6-7 times before making the 49ers roster, because it's kind of hard to see that type of running style be beneficial and really work at the next level. And Raheem Mostert luckily was like, oh, well, he got in some games and he was able to show you, hey, my acceleration is so tremendous. My speed is so tremendous. I'm able to offset maybe not having the prettiest of running back styles. I'm not sure that Guerendo is going to be able to kind of have the same effect as Raheem Mostert did once Mostert was able to really showcase his ability.
And Raheem Mostert wasn't really even a full-time running back until he was a pro, essentially, because he was a track guy. Then he was kind of a wide receiver hybrid player. And then he was sort of more of a special teams gunner type of a guy. And so he was a late bloomer because he was just late to the party as a running back, period. But for Guerendo, he was playing running back all this time. But if you look at him statistically, it looks a lot like Raheem Mostert's stats in college, except for that he was a running back the whole time. And Isaac Guerendo, so by the way, 6 feet, 221 pounds for Guerendo at the combine. He did not start a game until his final game at Louisville in the bowl game. That was his first career start. He had been in college for 6 years. So he started his journey at Wisconsin in 2018. He was at Wisconsin for 5 years. In 2019, he missed 8 games due to a hamstring injury. Then he missed 6 more games his third year in 2020, which would have been his redshirt sophomore year at Wisconsin. He missed 6 more games because of a hamstring. And then that was also the pandemic shortened season. So he only got 1 game in that year. Then in 2021 at Wisconsin, he missed the final 9 games because of a foot injury. So he didn't have a full season until his 5th year in 2022, which was his last year at Wisconsin, where he only had 385 rushing yards, then transferred to Louisville, where he had 810, which doubled his entire output of his entire college, more than doubled his entire output for his entire college career in his final season there. Got 1 start and did have 11 touchdowns in that final year in Louisville. So he had 1,392 career rushing yards in college, Croc. And we're going to talk about a guy in a little bit that had more than that in multiple seasons. in college. One thing Isaac Guerendo brings to the table, aside from timed speed, though, is his receiving ability. So I want to talk a little bit more about Guerendo, what he brings to the table, what he needs to improve on as a prospect, why he was drafted where he was, why he fits in with the 49ers. And then we'll talk Cody Schrader, undrafted running back out of Missouri as well, and take a little peek at this running back depth chart and the nice little training camp battle that might ensue here as we head into the summer next. This episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. It's winner take all time in the NBA and the NHL. And I know Croc's trying to fight off the urge to watch the basketball game. Might be over now.
It's over. Hey, they're probably gonna have some updates on FanDuel. The Minnesota Timberwolves, they knock off the Denver Nuggets. So go over to FanDuel. Make sure you guys look at all the player odds and the higher, the lowers, the more, the less, and what they'll be moving forward in the Western Conference Finals.
Absolutely. So there's going to be some brand new odds hitting at FanDuel, and you can find not only NBA playoffs, NHL playoffs odds, giving you a shot to bring home that big W of your own at FanDuel, but you can find NFL odds as well, like taking a look at that Niners schedule, right? 11.5 wins over under. What do you think? Croc likes the over on that. I think that's a really good number. Offensive, defensive rookies of the year, Ricky Pearsall. Some really nice odds there at FanDuel.com. If you want to bet on the Niners, if you want to bet on the NFL, as well as all the games going on right now, Major League Baseball. I was at the baseball game today. Giants, big winners over the Rockies. And right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. All right, Isaac Guerendo. One thing Isaac Guerendo brings to the table, Croc, he's got obviously the timed height, weight, and speed, which we talked about. 6 feet, 221, 4.33 40 time. By the way, very few running backs in this entire class are bigger than Isaac Guerendo. If you look at, one of the running backs that's bigger than Isaac Guerendo at 200 and I believe it's 35 pounds is Braylon Allen, Wisconsin, where Isaac Guerendo used to be. Braylon Allen walked in as a rookie and was the starting running back over Isaac Guerendo at Wisconsin as a true freshman, while Isaac Guerendo was a redshirt junior at that time in 2021. Braylon Allen.
How old was Allen? Do you see his age?
Yeah, he was a true junior when he came out. So
no. But how old was he when he? I want to say that's a dude that was super young getting to college, like maybe 16 years old, or like just something wild.
I don't know about 16, maybe 17, but for sure the youngest running back in this class. So Jonathan Brooks' age when he was drafted is 20 3/4, and Braylon Allen was only 20 1/4. So Braylon Allen was 19 years old to begin his final season that we saw as a true junior in college. So his 3 years in college, he was 17, 18, 19 years old. 6'1" and an eighth, 235 pounds, by the way, Braylon Allen. And he came in as a 17-year-old and beat out, 21-year-old at that time, Isaac Guerendo for the starting job at Wisconsin.
Where did Braylon Allen go? Cowboys? No.
I can look that up real quick.
No, not the Cowboys.
I do not have that on my screen, but I will find it very quickly for you. But he's the only running back that's basically bigger than Isaac Guerendo in this entire class, because there's a couple guys that are like 220, 222, something like that, right in that 220, 221 range that Isaac Guerendo is in. Braylon Allen, by the way, was the very next running back selected after Isaac Guerendo. So Guerendo did go first. Braylon Allen went to the New York Jets 5 picks later at the end of round 4. New York Jets is where Braylon Allen went. And he went after Isaac Guerendo, which is interesting. So the guy who started in front of Guerendo went after Guerendo. Guerendo got 1 start in college. And I think this is what I think Isaac Guerendo's. You talked about running style, by the way. I want to go back to that. And I think his running style actually reminds me a little bit more of Trey Sermon. And one of the things I didn't love about Trey Sermon coming out was like, okay, let's get to the hole, buddy. You know what I mean? It was like, oh, do I want to go here? Okay, I'm going to go here. And when you're an athlete and you're in college, you can do that. You can take some time and you're like, and there's been successful running backs in the NFL that maybe really used their vision and took time to hit the hole. But Kyle Shanahan's not about that business. Kyle Shanahan wants you to get out, especially on those outside zone runs, right? You press the outside and you see it, you put your foot in the ground and you hit it. And that's where Raheem Mostert was really good and showed off that acceleration. So with his proclivity kind of to bounce things outside a little bit, and maybe not find that little crease on the inside for Isaac Guerendo, maybe it's a great fit for him scheme-wise. I'm not sure. We'll see. But one thing he can do is, first of all, he has size. So you would think he'd be a pretty good pass protector because he's not gonna, he's not like not a physical guy or anything. He's a big running back and he plays big enough, but he's got a lot of receiving ability and he's a former wide receiver and he's got the ability to make catches. Now, he wasn't utilized necessarily as a pure running back. In college, schemes aren't really good at utilizing running backs out of the backfield as like a pure receiver running routes and things. Like when you did see him make catches, a lot of it was like, okay, check down. And he was just like, just kind of hanging out, waiting for a pass to be thrown his way. So that'll be interesting to see if he can be utilized more in that way. So some passing down utility, I think, for Isaac Guerendo will be interesting. And what will be his ability on special teams, say returning kicks or coverage units? Because I think that's going to be really big for a guy who's going to come in and be running back 4 at best, right, Croc?
Yeah, at best. And the 49ers have guys like Elijah Mitchell on the roster. You got Jordan Mason on the roster. And then you have the other guy that we'll talk about with Cody Schrader. And I felt like when you look at scheme and we're comparing these two backs and how they run, I think there's some things that Cody Schrader does that I see exactly how that works with the 49ers. Guerendo, a lot of talent. But I wonder how many people were surprised by some of the workout numbers he put up. Unless you just watch every, kind of like I did with DK Metcalf, right? Like I'm watching every game and all of a sudden I see this time where he runs away from this Kentucky defender and the Kentucky defender's looking at his back and he's trying his hardest and DK looks like he's just gliding, looking back for the ball, catches. I'm like, I think this big ass dude might run a 4.3. Like, like you could just kind of see that. And then obviously he ran fast. So I wasn't surprised when he ran fast. Guerendo, maybe there's some guys where you see him break out in the open field and they're like, oh, this is a 4.3 guy. But one of the notes, as a matter of fact, the last note that I have here on him is doesn't play fast, but can run fast. And that was kind of my best way to explain it. It's not Raheem Mostert. But if you give him a big enough crease he can get north right now and he just sees it and hits it, he can really, accelerate through there. But I feel like those kind of runs for him were few and far in between. It wasn't like it was a big part of his game.
I've heard this theory a lot from 49ers fans after the draft, is that Isaac Guerendo is actually somebody who's potentially the heir apparent to Kyle Juszczyk at fullback. He's 6 feet. He's 221 pounds. Kyle Juszczyk was a halfback. He was a tailback in college and converted into a full-time fullback and was a really athletic guy for a fullback in college, and testing numbers wise was Kyle Juszczyk. Like Kyle Juszczyk was a great athlete coming out. Quachipto says, just make him a fullback and use his athleticism.
They did use him at fullback a little bit at Louisville. There were times where they would have 2 backs in, and he would come through, be a lead blocker, and then the starting running back would get the ball, and you see him be able to lead block. So there were times where they utilized him in that way. It wasn't obviously a consistent thing. He was just kind of the back that would spell the starting back, more consistently. But if the 49ers saw that, I don't think that's why the 49ers drafted him. I think they drafted him because they like the intangibles and they are potentially excited about what they may be able to get out of him. I don't, but if push comes to shove and say, oh, maybe he's a fullback, I bet Kyle Juszczyk was drafted to be a fullback. So it's kind of easier to just plug him into that role. Guerendo drafted to be a running back.
Kyle Juszczyk was a running back, and it was athletic, but he ran 4.65, by the way. When he came out of Harvard, he was 6'1" and 3/8, 248. Currently listed, I believe, at 235. So, but he bulked up like he was a fullback from day one. Kyle Juszczyk listed at 235 right now. Could you put 14 more pounds on Isaac Guerendo? And more importantly, is he wired in the way a fullback needs to be wired?
Or the way that a fullback needs to be wired for the 49ers? Because Kyle Juszczyk, he does a lot. And they put a lot on his plate. He's able to line up at so many different positions. He's the ultimate utility guy. I know I've been on record of saying he's overrated, but I think just in the sense of if you took Juszczyk out of the offense, could the offense still function at a high level? I think absolutely. But he does do his job at a very high level. And I think Kyle Juszczyk, using him in the ways that he does, it seems a little bit more difficult for a running back to just come into the NFL and just do that.
Running back is such a instinctive position, Croc. And that's where I'm really interested to see what Isaac Guerendo looks like, because I can't really even recall a player. And Raheem Mostert might be a great example of it, but he wasn't really even asked to do it. Isaac Guerendo played a lot of running back for a lot of years, and there were some injuries and there were some other reasons why. But can you think of a guy who just was like a straight up backup, never did much in college, and then really hit in the NFL?
Frank Gore. But they tell you Frank Gore was the best, but you guys got to remember there was like Clinton Portis, Willis McGahee. They had all these backs at Miami, and Frank Gore,
too.
Frank Gore, who they felt was potentially the best, he just had those injuries. But
right.
It's not something that you see a lot, where a backup running back goes to the NFL and all of a sudden he's just, now I'm great now. Not saying it can't happen, but it's a little bit more rare.
Speaking of the Miami running backs, Najee Davenport. Guerendo Davenport role, maybe. Davenport was already really big, though.
Yeah.
But he still played running back, and he wasn't necessarily a fullback until he got to the NFL, and it didn't quite work out because I don't think he wanted to be a fullback. I think he saw himself as a small guy.
Invader 49er in the chat says Terrell Davis. And did he back up? Because he went to Georgia, and there is Garrison Hurst went to Georgia. Is there a chance that Terrell Davis backed up Garrison Hurst? And did he back up Hurst while Hurst was there and they left college at potentially the same time and Terrell Davis still had the career he had? Or did Terrell Davis eventually start and then go to the NFL?
I don't remember. And Terrell Davis was like he had a military background as well, right? So he was an older player when he came in. And I don't remember if his military service was before college or after college. So there was a gap there, which was the reason why he wasn't like a traditional prospect as well.
I'm pulling it up right now.
You pull that up. Let's talk a little bit more about that. And then we're going to talk a little bit about Cody Schrader, the undrafted running back out of Missouri, who was ridiculously productive, started a lot of games in college and ran for a lot of yards, does not have the same height, weight, speed as Isaac Guerendo, but I think he's going to compete for a spot on the 49ers roster. We'll get into that undrafted rookie next. This episode of Locked On 49ers is sponsored in part by Gametime, with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from receipt, and their lowest price guarantee. Gametime takes all the guesswork out of buying NFL tickets and Major League Baseball tickets. I got last-minute tickets to today's Giants game. Super easy and super cheap, below face value at Gametime. And I got them last minute on the way there, headed down to the ballpark, brought my son. It was Little League Day. He's running the bases on the field. I had a great time and saved a little bit of money. So give me a little extra cash to buy a new lid, to buy Leo a new lid, right? So there's so many more things you can do with your money when you're not spending all of it on those tickets. And not only do you get a great deal on tickets, up to 60% off, by the way, buying last minute sports, concerts, or comedy tickets, also all in pricing. So you know that you're getting a great deal up front without that hidden surprise at checkout. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first ticket purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
All right, so I have this all kind of broken down.
All right.
So Garrison Hurst went to Georgia 1990, 1991, 1992. All right, 92 season had over 1,500 rushing yards. There was a little bit of an overlap. I want to say 91 and 92. Actually, no. Terrell Davis went to Long Beach State in 91, and then 92 he went to Georgia. So that's where the overlap was, and he continued to play at Georgia in 93 and 94. Now, he only had 97 carries for 445 yards his last year at Georgia, but technically he was the leading rusher. He had the most rushing attempts on that roster, not many rushing attempts. He had 97. That was the most. Hines Ward was actually second on the team in rushing attempts with 77, and he had 20 less rushing yards than Terrell Davis. So there also was Larry Bowie, who had 46 rushing attempts, but not a whole lot of rushing production from that Georgia team. Sounds like Terrell Davis was kind of the starter there.
They were just chucking the ball then, huh?
Let's see if they're really throwing the ball. I have the quarterback stats here. 433 passing attempts for Eric Zier.
Eric Zier. I remember Eric Zier. I remember the name. I wouldn't know if I passed him on the street. So that means that was 94 was his final year?
Yep.
So that means there was a gap because he didn't show up on the Broncos until late 90s, 96, 98. So 97, 97.
Nah, I don't know if there was a gap. I think he went straight to the league.
Did he?
But remember, he was like Terrell Davis was like an undrafted, not undrafted, like late round pick.
I thought there was military service in there.
I'll tell you right now. I just picked him. Oh, no, because 94 is his last college season. 95 was his rookie year in the NFL.
Okay. So
he actually ran for 1,100 yards.
In 95. Okay. I didn't realize that he showed up so quickly in the NFL then.
Yeah.
All right. So there you go. There's your comp. Hall of Famer Isaac Guerendo, the next Terrell Davis. What about Cody Schrader, Croc, the undrafted rookie out of Missouri, another player who's an older prospect, 24 years old. In fact, he's a little bit older than Isaac Guerendo. Isaac Guerendo will be 24 during his rookie season. Cody Schrader already 24. In fact, Cody Schrader is going to be turning 25 during his season, and some serious superlatives with these running backs, Croc. So Isaac Guerendo, one of the bigger backs in the class, top 4 or 5 in weight, and really just right there with the other guys that are, 220, 225, 222, as far as heaviest backs in this class, and obviously ran 4.33, which was the fastest 40 time at the combine amongst these running backs. And then you go to Cody Schrader, who at 5'8.5" is the shortest running back, a second shortest running back in this class to Blake Corum, who's a little under 5'8", 5'7" and 3/4, 205 pounds, 202 pounds is Cody Schrader. But even with not being the shortest running back in this class, even shorter arms, so 28 and an 1/8 inch arms, which is, some of the shortest in the entire NFL and the shortest in this draft class, 68 and 5/8 wingspan, which is a couple inches short of where Blake Corum was, even though Blake Corum's 5'7" and 3/4. So this is a really stubby runner. 6th-year senior out of Missouri. He played at, he put up crazy numbers in his college career. So just not only height, weight, speed, but just every aspect of his resume as a prospect is different than Isaac Guerendo. So 5'8.5", 202 pounds, short arms, really short, stubby prospect, 4.61 in the 40-yard dash, 33-inch vertical, which is pretty good for his profile. Didn't even have amazing short shuttle and 3 cones, 4.46 short shuttle, which is not even as good as Dominic Pooney's was as a 3rd-round guard for the 49ers, 7.38 3 cone, put up 20 bench press reps. So nothing super impressive about him as a workout player. But at Truman State, he was a Division I want to get this right. He was
D2.
a D2, right?
Yeah.
First team All-American, offensive player of the year, led NCAA in rushing in his junior season with 300 carries for 2,074 yards and 25 touchdowns. That's 6.9 yards per carry there. Then transferred after that season to the University of Missouri. And he walked on, by the way. He wasn't like recruited. This wasn't a transfer portal like you're getting NIL money. He had to walk on in January of 22 to make the Missouri roster. And his first year there ended up leading the team in rushing yards, 745 yards, and then came back his final year, 2023, and had 1,627 more rushing yards. First team All-American, now D1 style, first team All-SEC, and just an unbelievable career for a guy who was a 0-star recruit and just a self-made player. And when you watch him play, it's night and day. It just looks so much different than the style, the height, weight, speed, everything than Isaac Guerendo, the 4th round pick for the 49ers.
One thing I like about what Kyle Shanahan is doing right now, when you look at these skill position players for the 49ers, everybody thinks you got to get the stereotype guy, right? Like these guys, these dark black guys from the SEC that run fast, they're big, strong, and all this. But Kyle says, nah, man, I got Kyle Juszczyk, man. I got Christian McCaffrey. I got Ricky Pearsall, George Kittle. And now he has, 49ers only squad in the NFL with like 2 white running backs, Cody Schrader, who I think is going to make this over Guerendo. It's just a very unique room, which Kyle Shanahan is like, nah, forget all those stereotypes, man. We got some guys that can ball. So I love seeing that.
You've seen the meme, Croc, that's traveling around the internet, and it's like a picture of Juszczyk and Christian McCaffrey and George Kittle and Brock Purdy, and then the next picture, it's a wine section at like a local fancy market, and the label for the wines is Gourmet Whites.
I like that. They need to run with that nickname right there, man. Yeah. Awesome stuff. But let's talk about Cody Schrader and why earlier you talked about the 2 prospects. I'm like, I don't really think it's close. I think Cody Schrader is the better back. I think we've always identified him as potentially just a better true running back, right? Like just from the production that he had. But let's kind of dive into their games and why I think like he may be a better fit for the San Francisco 49ers. My first note, love him with the zone blocking, right? Whether it's zone blocking, I thought he did a terrific job of that stretch and reading the backer, reading the offensive lineman, being able to put his foot in the ground. He can get skinny in the holes there, kind of make guys miss. And I felt like he maximized being able to get the amount of yards he needed to get. He got those yards. Didn't leave a lot of empty yardage on the field. I thought he had a nice, decent short burst speed when getting to the edge in that stretch. And then I put I don't like his stop to start, and I don't like his I don't like when he has to stop his feet. And I think that's where when you start talking about some of the measurables, right? You mentioned this 3-cone and L drill and it being the same as the 49ers offensive guard that they drafted. I think you can see that on film if he has to stop his feet and maybe change direction. He is strictly zone and from the ground and go, or straight downhill, read the lineman and like run off their button. I think he does a good job of wiggling in there. But if he has to create, I think that's a big issue for him and maybe why he didn't quite get drafted.
Yeah, no, I think that's well said there, because you use the word maximize, and he maximizes a lot of what he has. And it's not, he wasn't undrafted just because he's short. I mean, the dude had over 5,000 rushing yards in college. The second back taken in this class was shorter, right? Is the only guy that was shorter than him in this class. It's on tape. There's a lack of athleticism. There's a lack of size. And he doesn't even have to really get low because he's already so naturally low. But, man, he's an effort player. He doesn't shake people. He hits a hole. He hits it hard. He fights for every single yard. He's Rudy, right? You're going to root for him. He's going to be everybody's favorite player. You're going to hope he can make it. But it's not just that he was not the height, weight, speed specimen that Isaac Guerendo was. It's that he's so short in those, not short height wise, but even though he's short 5'8.5", he's short height wise, but he's just so shy of what you want in an NFL running back to be able to create on his own. He just doesn't have a lot of those traits. And that's why he went undrafted, despite how, how successful he was in college and the numbers he put up as a player. So he's an interesting test case here because he's in a Kyle Shanahan scheme. He's obviously smart and tough and has all the intangibles and all those things. And he's going to maximize everything he can. Do the measurables truly matter for a running back? Or if you are tough and you have enough of athleticism and you have the vision and you're in that Shanahan scheme, can you be successful? I think we're going to find out. I think Cody, to be honest with you, these guys are both so fascinating. So I think they're both test cases. One guy's height, weight, speed with no production. One guy's all production with no height, weight, speed.
I think when I think about him, right, and I think about maybe what his scouting report could have been, and it reminds me a lot of reading Brock Purdy's scouting report. Right, you go to Brock Purdy's scouting report, it says kind of has a laboring release, like his release is kind of long, but he's going to need to go to a system that requires precision over having a big arm and is a play action based offense. And what did Brock Purdy go to? A system that requires him to be precise over having a big arm and a play action based offense, right? So he got everything he needed, and then boom, I'm able to maximize that. When I watched Cody Schrader, it was a guy that definitely knows how to utilize that outside zone, like that stretch offense, understands how to read his blockers. I thought his vision was terrific. He maximizes his touches on those kind of runs. Not a guy that's going to dance around a whole lot, and you definitely don't want him doing that. Knows how to, hit the hole right now, going straight up the gut. And I feel like his scouting report would match how he could be successful with a team like the San Francisco 49ers. So I can't say the same for Guerendo. And again, we'll see. Like I'll never say what a guy will and won't be, but I definitely see a clearer fit for Schrader than I do Guerendo.
But man, he's fun to watch. Like he gets yards and he gets to where he needs to go. And we've watched enough Kyle Shanahan. We know enough about him now. If you said this guy is going to be in the right place and he's going to get what's blocked and he's going to be tough and he's going to be what you need when you need it, I feel like he's going to have a shot. And Kyle Shanahan's going to like him.
Why did Elijah Mitchell play over Trey Sermon? You didn't know what you were going to get from Trey Sermon. He's going to try to bounce it outside. He's going to hit the hole. Like he's a little dancing. He starts getting in his head, and Elijah Mitchell is like, foot in the ground, let me get up right now. Foot in the ground, okay, I got the speed, I can outrun guys. With these two running backs, I think it's something like that. Like Guerendo, I don't know from play to play. It might be a 1 yard gain. It might be a 1 yard loss. It's a short yard situation. He's trying to bounce it outside. I don't think Kyle's going to care for that. I think he's going to like a little bit more the guy that he just knows if he's supposed to outside zone, stretch this run, he's going to read the blocker the way he needs to and get upfield right now. He's going to hit the hole the way he needs to right now. He's going to run behind his pads right now. And I can't say the same for Guerendo. So if we're pitting these guys against each other, for me, it seems like one guy, I hate to say workout warrior, but maybe his skill set can translate better to the NFL in the sense of just athletic ability, and maybe he just takes off. But if I'm a betting guy, which I am, I put my money on Schrader.
Like if we're playing a game tomorrow, Schrader's going to be the better running back, right?
And Schrader is slower. I see M. Patel in the chat. He says, Cody seems slower. He is slower. Like he's not fast, but how fast does he need to be a consistent guy that gets yards? Like if you look up, let's say like Philip Lindsay, right? And he was a guy who was like undrafted. He had a chip on his shoulder. He ended up starting games in the NFL for, I think it was like Denver Broncos. He wasn't like the guy with the most intangibles, but he just understood how to run. I think he was out of Colorado State. He just understood how to run at the NFL level. And I think with Cody Schrader, I'm not saying he's going to be like the next great 49ers running back, but if you're talking about these two guys, Do I like him more than Elijah Mitchell? Like, no. But if we're talking about these two guys, there's one guy I feel like fits more than the other.
And I think they're both clearly 4 and 5 on the depth chart after Elijah Mitchell, after Jordan Mason. Tommy Vardell is another. That's a good name in the chat. A hybrid kind of tailback, fullback. Remember Peyton Hillis? That's another one, right? Those guys were all bigger than Guerendo is right now. In fact, that reminds me of a great comp I totally forgot about, and I'm glad that just jarred my memory. I was looking at Mock Draftable and looking at similar athletic profiles from combine testing. Here's a name, Croc, that that I'm sure you remember is Justin Fargas.
Yes.
Yeah. So he didn't light the world on fire production-wise in college, but he ran 4.3s. And so athletically, I think that's actually a phenomenal comp for Isaac Guerendo, a player who wasn't like the main guy in college, athletically tested great, didn't have an amazing NFL career, Croc. So Justin Fargas, I think, is a good comp for him. There's another guy who went about 6'1", 220, ran 4.3s. The fullback thing, I'm not so sure about. I don't know if that's what's in their mind, but if they think that Guerendo could get up into the 240s, then sure, why not? But I think he might have to fail out of being a true running back first. And there's not room for a second fullback on the roster, by the way, either.
And it's hard to fail out, and then you're gonna let him go, and then he has to clear waivers. Then you bring him back in his practice squad. Then how long does he last on practice squad? There might be a team like, let's say, Dallas Cowboys, who may be short of running backs, and they're like, oh well, we can take a look at a 6'1", 220-pound running back that ran on the 4.3s and see if maybe he fits a little bit more in our type of system.
And it sounds like we're kind of crushing Isaac Guerendo as a prospect, and we're not doing that. Look, this was a late 4th round running back. He's got a lot of ability. He's got, I think, some utility because of his receiving ability too, which I think is important for him. But it's just rare for a player to hit immediately when he didn't even earn a starting job in college as a running back. And you can find really good starting running backs all over the place. Like you're turning over couch cushions. You're like, oh, here's this guy who was like a really good running back, and he's available for you late in drafts, undrafted, as free agents in the NFL. And so that's what's fascinating to me about that prospect and how different he is than Cody Schrader.
And not just that, you're talking about finding like running backs, right? You talking about a guy who is at Wisconsin, could not start at Wisconsin. Said, all right, I can't start here. I want to finish up my college somewhere where maybe I have more opportunity to start. He transferred to Louisville, where you're thinking, oh man, Wisconsin running back going to Louisville, like definitely going to start. And he couldn't start there until his last game in college.
He still got drafted over the guy that started over him as a true freshman in Wisconsin, though. Yeah. So we'll see. Interesting. It's going to be a battle to even make the roster, even for a 4th round running back, I think, unless there's injuries. And you know what, running back, there are injuries, especially with Elijah Mitchell. He's injured a lot, but I would be pretty surprised if at any point early in the season, anybody without an injury has jumped ahead of Elijah Mitchell or Jordan Mason on the 49ers depth chart at running back. And obviously nobody's jumping in front of Christian McCaffrey. Dude's probably still not going to leave the football field for the 49ers. So I don't think they even need to be 4 deep at running back either. So interesting that they drafted Guerendo so high, and I can't wait to see what they think the role is going to be for him. All right. Thanks, everybody, for making us your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Let us know what you think about the 49ers rookie running backs. Fascinating couple of players to me. We'll continue on with some undrafted free agents, doing some film work and talking about some of the training camp battles coming up this summer. Tatum Bethune, linebacker from Florida State, would be up next, and a few other very interesting undrafted free agents as well to break down. Let us know what you want us to talk about at BD Peacock, at Crocky209. Of course, hit subscribe on YouTube and everywhere you are listening to this podcast. Croc and I back tomorrow right here. Locked On 49ers.